In the fall of 2020, in the small town strung along the Texas Arkansas line, a woman named Taylor Parker was about to have a baby. Everyone knew it. She had the belly. She had the ultrasound photos. She had thrown the gender reveal party and done the maternity shoot. Her boyfriend watched her grow for months. As far as anyone around could tell, Taylor was just a few weeks away from becoming a mother. There was only one problem with Taylor Parker's pregnancy. 5 years earlier, she had undergone a hysterectomy. She had no uterus. She couldn't carry a child, and she wasn't carrying one now. The baby the whole town was waiting on simply did not exist. And to make the lie real, to walk into her boyfriend's house with a newborn in her arms, Taylor Parker had already decided that she was going to take someone else's. To understand how a person gets to that point, you have to understand that the fake pregnancy was not the beginning of this story. It was the end of a very long road. Taylor Parker had been lying her entire adult life. Big lies, told with total confidence. She told people she was an heiress to an oil fortune. She used different names for different situations. She had worked for a staffing agency and at one point at an OBGYN clinic, the place that gave her exactly the kind of language and detail that she would later use to make her own fake pregnancy sound real. Her ex-husband, Hunter Parker, would later stand up in court and describe what it was actually like to be married to her. He said that she had fake seizures to keep him from leaving, that she invented a long list of medical problems, and that when the truth about her hysterectomy became inconvenient, she tried to talk him into hiring a surrogate so she could still hand him a baby and keep the story going. This was not even her first fake pregnancy. Before any of this, she had told her boyfriend, Wade Griffin, that she was pregnant with twins, and then produced a story about a car accident to explain the miscarriage that conveniently followed. She built entire lives out of nothing, and she dared the people around her to doubt her. Somewhere underneath all of it was one wound Taylor could not lie her way out of. In 2015, she had a hysterectomy. Whatever that loss meant to her, she never accepted it. Instead of living with the fact that she could not have children, she built an entire alternate reality in which she could. And she spent years defending that reality against anyone who got close enough to see through it. And Wade Griffin never saw through it. For the better part of a year, he did everything an expecting father does. He believed there was a daughter coming. He was building a life around a due date that was never real, attached to a woman who had already decided exactly how she was going to keep her promise to him. Without ever knowing it, Wade was the reason the clock was ticking. And here is the part that makes it almost unbearable. People did doubt her. The warnings were there. Friends suspected the pregnancy was fake and said so. Her own first ex-husband went so far as to anonymously warn Wade Griffin that he was being lied to. The alarm got raised. It just wasn't loud enough, and it didn't come in time. Because by then, Taylor had already found the missing piece of her lie. She found a real pregnant woman. Her name was Reagan Simmons-Hancock. She was 21 years old, and she lived in New Boston, Texas. She worked at a restaurant in the area, and she was, by every account, exactly the kind of warm, open person who lets people in. She had married a man named Homer Hancock and become a young mother. She had a mother, a father, and a stepfather, a whole family close enough to have been at her wedding just a year before. And she already had a little girl of her own, a 3-year-old daughter named Kinley. Now, she was 36 weeks pregnant with her second daughter, a baby the family had named Braxlyn Sage. She had a name picked out, a nursery, a future. She had everything that Taylor Parker had only pretended to have. Reagan and Taylor weren't strangers. A year earlier, Taylor had been the photographer at Reagan's wedding. She had worked her way into Reagan's life and her family, showing up, taking the pictures, appearing in the selfies, playing the part of the friend. Reagan had no reason in the world to see her as anything else. She had no way of knowing that Taylor didn't want her friendship. Taylor wanted her due date. That is the coldest thing about this whole case. Taylor Parker didn't snap. She shopped. She needed a real baby to match a fake pregnancy that she had built on a timeline that matched the lie she had already told, and she went looking for a woman who trusted her enough to let her get close. Reagan was warm and welcoming and expecting a baby girl right on schedule. To Taylor, that made her a target. On October 9th, 2020, Taylor Parker went to Reagan's home in New Boston, and inside the house where Reagan was raising her family, Taylor killed her and took the unborn baby from her body. The details of what she did are beyond brutal, and they don't need to be spelled out here. What matters is that a young mother was murdered in her own home for the child inside. And 3-year-old Kinley was there when it happened. That little girl survived that day by doing the only thing a terrified child can do. She hid. When the family arrived at the house, they found Kinley alive, tucked under the sheets on a bed, having somehow stayed silent and hidden through the single worst thing that will ever happen to her. Taylor Parker got into her car with the baby and drove. What finally stopped her was almost ordinary, and this part has been told before. A state trooper pulled her over for erratic driving and found what she was carrying. Baby Braxlin was rushed to the hospital, where doctors managed, for a few moments, to bring back a pulse. But it wasn't enough. The injuries were too much. Reagan's second daughter never got to come home. When it finally went to trial, the jury didn't need long. After the case was laid out, the hysterectomy, the fake ultrasounds, the years of manufactured lies, and the horror at the end of them, they took about an hour to find Taylor Parker guilty of capital murder. Then they did something the state of Texas almost never does. They sentenced a woman to death. Taylor Parker became only the 7th woman in Texas on death row, and the first woman the state had condemned to death in a decade. She is sitting there today. She spent years of her life building a child out of lies. A belly made of silicone, a photo, a name, a due date. A story she told so well and so often that even the people who loved her believed every word. In the end, the only child left standing in Taylor Parker's story was the one she could never fake and never reach. Kinley is growing up now in Arkansas, raised by a family who loves her, a family who loved her mother. They say she looks more like Reagan every year. The same face, the same personality. A little girl who hid under the covers while a stranger tried to erase her family is still here. Still Reagan's daughter, and still the one true thing in a story built entirely on lies.